Out of This World, Thinking Fourth Dimensionally by Neville Goddard. This book focuses on the creative power of imagination. It's titled Out of This World because, as Neville claims, the creative part of us lies in a realm outside of the physical, which corroborates with this spiritual assumption. It states that we don't create from what's in front of us, we create from the unseen. It guides man to look inwards because the cornerstone of all things are based on man's conception of himself. He acts as he does, and he has the experiences that he has because his concept of himself is what it is and for no other reason. Neville gives clarity on the concepts of manifestation through dreams. He provides steps for changing our future by assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. And he discusses how one can create fourth dimensionally and how when you create fourth dimensionally, it translates into reality onto this third dimension. For many of us, the concept of creating from the fourth dimension seems like an unorthodox way of doing things. The natural man relies on his five senses, and the spiritual man relies on signs, symbols, synchronicity, and intuition. And the goal ultimately is to blend the two, because when you begin to see beyond the limitations of the five senses, the world around you begins to transform and take shape to your desires. Personally speaking, because of my transformation, I've been inspired to share this work with others. It's had such a big impact on my life. It's been such a transformative journey for me that I've been called to share my personal journey, but also those that have inspired me, like the works of Neville Goddard. And my hope is that some of the information I share resonates with others. As the Kabbalion says, in order for us to grow and evolve, knowledge is meant to be shared and shared with the collective. So in today's discussion, I'll share some quotes that really stood out to me from Out of This World, how it resonated with me, and hopefully how it can resonate for you. Through the teachings in today's reading, you begin to really understand the concept of out of this world and creating from a place of out of this world. You start to understand that it's quite possible that you've seen something, experienced something in your imagination, in a feeling, before it's come to pass. People often coin the term deja vu, but are we seeing things in our imagination? Are we creating things? And then through our creation and through the feeling of that creation, are we bringing them forth and experiencing them in our reality? John 14:29 is referring to observing events before they occur. Now, many of us observe events before they occur in our physical reality, but we often don't pay them much attention. I've told you before it comes to pass, that when it comes to pass, ye might believe, meaning I have seen an event before it occurred, and that occurrence took place out of this world. There are those that believe there's nothing outside of the experience of the five senses, and everything will have a rational, logical explanation. Whereas there are others that believe that there are planes and dimensions beyond our physical realm. And when one operates from these dimensions, they have the ability to create their experience on the physical dimensional plane. And for many of us, we've been taught that we create through our physical experience. We've been taught this through our educational institutions. We've been taught this from our parents, and social institutions also reinforce this paradigm. Now, what man must understand is that although it may seem that creating through your physical reality is the only way of creating, it's actually just one way of creating. For many of us, we have created from both dimensions, whether conscious or unconscious of it. But the true way to create, the way to create with ease and flow, is to create from within. It's not to create from our outer world. So as we journey through this text, is to really understand that creative power lies within. It's not about manipulating our outer world or contorting ourselves to change things in our outer world. When we do that, we're in a reactive state. But if we go within, we realize we're on the cause side of things than rather being on the effect side of things. The most remarkable feature of man's future is its flexibility. It is determined by his attitudes rather than by his acts. The cornerstone on which all things are based is man's concept of himself. He acts as he does and has the experiences that he has because his concept of himself is what it is and for no other reason. Our future can take on many different shapes and can go down several different paths. Our futures are malleable and flexible and are determined by our attitudes rather than by our actions. The catalyst for what shapes our future and our experiences is our concept and our attitudes about ourselves. It's not the actions that we take. Now, many of us subscribe to the belief that to change one's future, one must force things to happen, As the saying goes, we must grab the bulls by its horns, right? Force our way, forge our way through. Prior to coaching and understanding my energy and viewing things through the lens of human design, I was slave to the third dimensional way of creating. And I was ignorant to how we truly create. I was under the belief that life was like a game of dodgeball, is what I would often say. Life throws something at you, you're very responsive and reactive, you're quick on your feet, and then you throw something back. Programming and conditioning and social constructs reinforce the paradigm and belief that success is gained through hard work. And he or she that works hard is successful and will achieve the life they desire. What I realized is this: if you believe life to be difficult and hard, you will make decisions out of fear and a false sense of security, and you will attract people, places, and circumstances that are highly correlated to that belief. Thus, it's your concept of self, it's what you believe at the core that determines what you experience. As you believe, so shall it be. Everything you experience is you projected outwards. So, as Neville said, the cornerstone on which all things are based is man's concept of himself. He acts as he does, and he has experiences that he does because his concept of himself is what it is, and for no other reason. When you know that your creations are you projected outwards, you really begin to look beyond the physical nature of your five sensory experience, and you align with the true essence of what lies beneath them. You realize that you can receive information as it is through the lens of the five senses, or you can receive information through intuition, signs, synchronicities, thus aligning with the spiritual essence of your being and aligning with your higher self. Neville quotes and says, "The natural man receiveth not the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness unto him. Neither can he know them, for they are spiritually discerned." As stated, the most remarkable feature of man's future is its flexibility. It is determined by his attitude. Man can take on one or two attitudes that will form and create his future. Either he will absorb the attitudes of the natural man, the one who relies on his five senses and the cardinal mind, or he will absorb the attitudes of the spiritual man, the one who relies on his multi senses and of the Christ mind. For the natural man, he relies on his conscious state. They see things as they are through the lens of the five senses. For the natural man to change their circumstances, they must change the elements of the physical plane. They prioritize strategy and mechanics and hard work, and they overlook things like imagination, visualization, and faith. And you understand this as you awaken, the more conscious you are. For the awakened person, if you speak to anyone who doesn't have or share your level of consciousness or awareness, they may look at your beliefs as childish or foolish. Right. And I think this is something that you experience as you start to embark on this journey of raising your consciousness and elevating your awareness. As you evolve, yes, you attract like-minded people, but you will still have conversations with the natural minded five sensory person. And to them, they may view your beliefs as childish or foolish in nature or woo-woo, quote unquote. But the truth is, to see life solely through the lens of the five senses is to limit oneself. As the saying goes, the natural man receiveth not the things of the Spirit of God because they are foolishness unto him. Neither can he know them because they are spiritually discerned. The spiritual man sees that we exist on a continuum and that the past, present, and future are all one. And that imagination has the capacity to create in the present the future you desire. The spiritual man knows that to rely solely on your senses is to prevent yourself from doing that in which you intend to do, which is to see. As I started to shift from a five sensory perspective to a multi-sensory perspective, align more with the spiritual mind versus the cardinal mind, you really get to a place where you trust your instinct. You start to see signs, symbols, and synchronicities. And yes, if you viewed things through the lens of the five senses, you might question actually what you're seeing. And you might hesitate to have conversations like this with other people. I know for me, in the infancy of my journey, I really questioned what I was seeing. And I was hesitant to speak to this to others in fear that they might judge me, in fear that they might put me back into the box. So rather than doing that, what I did is I just paid attention to all the signs that were coming towards me. I set my attention for what I want. I stayed firm on creating my desire and focused on what I was seeing through the journaling. And what you'll notice is that if you keep a log or a journal, you'll notice that there are signs, symbols, and synchronicities that are coming up. And that becomes your proof. And through your proof, you start to have conviction and belief in what you're doing. And as you have more conviction and belief, there's a knowingness of your being. And that knowingness of your being carries its own vibration. And the more determined and the more sure you are, the more signs and symbols and synchronicities you'll start to see. But what's imperative is removing the veil of conditioning that has you focused on the five sensory world. As Neville said, to cultivate the faculty of seeing the invisible, you must disentangle the mind from the evidence of the five senses and focus the attention on the invisible state, mentally feeling it and sensing it until it has the feeling of reality. One way that we can begin to feel things and sense things and step into the state of knowingness is through our desires. Your desire is given to you through your higher self, and it wants you as much as you want it. You are part of source, and source is a part of you. So therefore, to have a desire and to know you have that desire is to be one with your higher self. Neville states the desire which impels us to action are those that hold our attention. A desire is but an awareness of something we lack or need to make our life more enjoyable. Desires always have some personal gain in view. The greater the anticipated gain, the more intense is the desire. The spiritual man speaks to the natural man through the language of desire. Now, the key to progress in life and to the fulfillment of dreams lies in the ready obedience to its voice. Unhesitating obedience to its voice is an immediate assumption of the wish fulfilled. To desire a state is to have it. As Pascal said, you would have not sought me had you not already found me. When you discover your truest and purest desires, the obsession and the need surrounding external satisfactions, they naturally lose their power and their grip on you. At the end of the day, we are spirit having this human experience on this physical plane. And as one becomes aware of this, one learns to navigate the physical plane while also being receptive to the voice of their spirit, because this is where their desires come. Ultimately, it's about aligning your mind, your body, and soul into one so you can progress in life in a way that allows you to fulfill your desires. And as he said, man can take on one of two attitudes that will form and create his future. Either he will absorb the attitudes of the natural man, the one who relies on his five senses, or he will absorb the attitudes of the spiritual man, the one that relies on his multi-senses. The natural man relies on a conscious state. They see things through the lens of the five senses. For the natural man to change their circumstances, they must change the elements on the physical plane. They prioritize strategy, mechanics, and hard work over imagination, visualization, and faith. But it's the spiritual man that looks beyond the limitations of the five senses and uses that information to guide him towards fulfilling his desires. Now, ultimately, they both have advantages. You live in a physical form, but we are spirit having this human experience. Therefore, if we combine the two, we understand that through the lens of the natural man, they experience life via the five senses, but when paired with the spiritual man, they receive information via the signs, symbols, and synchronicities that are meant to align them with their desires so they can live the life they're meant to live, right? That spiritual being within you is constantly sending you signs so you can envision your desires, so you can give images to your desires, so you can start assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled, so you can start living out your desires. People often ask, how do you know then if you're connected to spirit? How do you know to look beyond the five senses? How do you look outside this box? How do you step and remove the veil of conditioning that we've been living in for so long? And it's through our desires. Your desires are given to you and handed to you. As quoted, the first substance is consciousness. And if the first substance is consciousness, then it's through consciousness that we are all created. The Hermetics say that the all is mind and the universe is mental. Thus, you are a part of source energy and source is a part of you, meaning your desires are meant for you because they've been given to you. Thus, the desire state is to have it. And to acknowledge that you have the desire is to acknowledge alignment with divine intelligence. As the saying goes, you would not have sought me had you not already found me. To seek an answer is knowing that there is an answer to be sought out. And this is how we know we are one with our desire and that our desire is meant for us. Now, ways that people can align with desires is taking time for themselves, carving out time to sit in silence, meditation, but really connecting with your energy, setting the intention. As you align with your intention, you'll start to notice signs, symbols, and synchronicities and things that bring you towards what you want. Be aligned with your assumption. Your assumption is also your belief. So as we align with that, it brings us closer to our desire. Assumptions awaken what they affirm, meaning your assumptions create what you believe. The assumption that you have will harden into fact. So as you believe, so shall it be done unto you. The external world that we have, that we live in, that we reside in, is a materialization of how you believe reality shall work. Assumptions awaken what they affirm. As he stated, your assumptions awaken what they affirm, meaning your assumptions create what you believe. The assumption that you have will harden into fact. So as you believe, so shall it be done unto you. Right? This external world is a materialization of how you believe reality to work. So if you believe reality to be one way, you will find proof that it is so. And if you believe it to be another way, you will find proof that it is so. As the Kabbalion says, everything is and isn't at the same time. So, therefore, one individual might create success using X, another individual might create success using Y. So, it's about what they believe. Ultimately, you have a choice, but what you believe is what you will produce. In my Father's house, there are many mansions. There are many future states that we can embody. And all we have to do is go and prepare that state, and then we can be there physically. But it's the vision that you have that begins the process of carrying you there. The vision is the desire of the spirit and what your soul wishes to bring forth. And when you align yourself with the vision of the spirit, you align yourself with the imagination, and then you're creating in another dimension. You can be somewhere psychologically, create the space where you want to be physically in the future. And once that state is prepared, you will be there physically. So as a result, if you create a state in your imagination, your physical state will begin to take form until it resembles and looks like the vision and the imagination that you had in place, right? The universe will co-create with you until your physical reality resembles that of your vision. Now, Neville provides a step-by-step formula for us to change the future so that we can call things that are not seen to be seen. So the first step in changing the future is desire. That is, define your objective, know definitively what you want. Take your time, sit with yourself, know what you want for yourself. What you desire is your definite chief aim. Your desire has been given to you, but oftentimes we confuse our desires with what we've been programmed to desire. Therefore, it's important to silence the noise, sit in quiet or meditation, and discern what is it that you truly want. Or you can write down your wants and look at them and see, out of these wants, which one do I have a burning desire for? For some people that like to speak it out loud, surround yourself with like-minded people and have conversations about what you believe your desire to be. It's not necessarily to get their opinion, but it's to hear how it sounds out loud, almost like a soundboard. And then once you hear your thoughts out loud, you could start to discern and filter out what you truly desire versus what you don't desire. And secondly, construct an event which you believe you would encounter following the fulfillment of your desire. An event which implies fulfillment of your desire and something that will have the action of self predominant. So think of an event that you would encounter after you've obtained your desire that can be used in your imagination that also has you as the focal point. Third, immobilize the physical body and induce a condition akin to sleep. One may call this self-hypnosis. Neville coins this state akin to sleep. You can lie in a bed or you can relax in a chair. It's about being in a sleepy state. And then with your eyelids closed and your attention focused on the action you intend to experience in imagination, mentally feel yourself right into the proposed action, imagining that all the while you're actually performing the action here and now. Right? It's important that you participate in the action rather than seeing yourself as simply an onlooker out of frame. You want to be an active participant in the picture frame. The key thing is that this action or event follows the attainment of your desires. For instance, suppose that you want to receive a promotion and you've selected an event that you believe would occur after you receive that promotion. And first, induce a state akin to sleep, right? So in this theta state, as you are drifting off to sleep, you'll start to see people congratulating you, shaking hands with people. You'll feel the grip of their hands as you're giving them a handshake. You'll hear what they have to say as they're congratulating you, because this event is after you've fulfilled your desired state. And all of this is happening in front of you. You're a part of it. You're not an onlooker, but you're actually an active participant, extending your arm and shaking their hand. Perhaps you want to give a thank you speech. And as you're giving your thank you speech, you can see all the faces in front of you. You know what you say because you've practiced it verbatim. You've rehearsed it so many times. So you can hear yourself giving the speech that you've been practicing. You can see people's responses to your thank you speech. But what you're doing all the while, what we're doing is we're feeling ourselves in the action until it has this vividness of reality, right? We're feeling ourselves into action. The more we feel ourselves into the room, it creates a vividness of reality. What room are you in? Are you inside? Are you outside? Can you feel the heat of the sun pressed against your skin? Whose hand are you shaking? What is the texture? How does the hand grip feel? How does the handshake feel? What are they saying to you? Who is in attendance? How do they congratulate you? The idea is, don't think of it as a future state, but rather make elsewhere here and the future now. See yourself in the picture frame and part of the image, rather than seeing yourself looking at the picture, which would make you more of an observer or an onlooker. This is the key difference. The difference between feeling yourself in action here and now and visualizing yourself in action as if you were on a motion picture screen is the difference between success and failure. Desire, having a state akin to sleep, plus the imaginal act all come together to prepare a place for us in the future psychologically. And once the state is prepared, we may also be there physically. What I realized in my experience is that you'll want to create an experience with all your desires. But what you really want to do is focus on one burning desire. Restrict the focus and attention to one single act, because if you crowd your mind with too many images, you can lose focus of the imaginary action. Therefore, by focusing on one single act, your burning desire, you can become more persistent in repeating that act until it has this vividness of reality. You feels like it's actually happening. The idea is we want to have one burning desire, allow that to be the focal point. And when that desire is attained, then we can allow ourselves to naturally progress to the next burning desire. But trust that your burning desire, the main desire, is the one that you need to focus on first, and then the rest will fall into place. Neville says, if we decide to climb a particular flight of stairs, because that is the likely event to follow the realization of our desire, then we must restrict our action to climbing that particular flight of stairs. Now, should our attention wander off, we must bring it back to the task of climbing that flight of stairs and keep on doing so until that imaginary action has all the solidity and distinctness of reality. Therefore, yes, a focused attention is key to bringing forth what you desire, but also creating a state akin to sleep. We call this the theta state. This can happen the first thing in the morning before you start your day, before you're distracted, before you pick up your phone, before you start the motions that we all have. You're in this theta state. You're just getting up and your consciousness has not kind of taken control of the day. And just before you go to bed, as you're drifting to sleep, never caused us this state of drowsiness. It allows us to have a more focused attention. It's a state where we can still control what we desire and we imagine, but we're not distracted by the noise of the day. It's in this state that we can really begin to create and bring forth what we want into fruition. As Neville states, drowsiness facilitates change because it favors attention without effort. But it must not be pushed to the stage of sleep, in which we shall no longer be able to control the movements of our attention, but rather a moderate degree of drowsiness in which we are still able to direct our thoughts. A most effective way to embody a desire is to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and then, in a relaxed and sleepy state, repeat over and over again, like a lullaby, any short phrase which implies fulfillment of our desires, such as, thank you. Your assumption, if persistent, will harden into fact. What this is showing us is that we have the capability to go out of this world and change things in a fourth dimensional space so we can alter our experiences here in the third dimensional space. Now, the challenge is the natural mind operates from the five sensory point of view. And as a result, The natural minded person has a hard time grasping the notion of creating fourth dimensionally. As stated before, the natural man receiveth not the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness unto him. Neither can he know them, for they are spiritually discerned. Whether it's third dimension or fourth dimensionally, a dimension is simply a way that something can be measured that's different from another way of measuring it. Therefore, when man imagines himself in another state and he can feel himself in that state, he is accessing another dimension. And when we align our imagination with the feeling of the wish fulfilled, our desires will harden to fact and become reality. Drowsiness facilitates change because it takes our attention away from all the distractions of the day and allows us to focus our attention on that in which we imagine for ourselves. A state akin to sleep is the key to accelerating this process. You enter a meditative state before going to sleep. Feel what you would feel as if you had your desire. Ensure to visualize using all your senses so it feels like you're living it. By applying this process, one is able to tap into the limitless power of this subconscious mind. Next, your assumptions harden into fact. So what do you assume to be true? Does it align with your identity of yourself? Define your ideal and concentrate your attention upon the idea of identifying yourself with that ideal. Assume the feeling of being it, the feeling that would be yours if you already embodied your ideal. Then live and act upon this conviction. The assumption, though denied by senses, if persisted, will become fact. These inner assumptions rule and govern our lives. A suggestion has no power in and of itself. Its power arises from the fact that you accept it mentally. Meaning you can hear, you can listen, you can read anything you want. People can tell you what they want. Conditioning and programming can attempt to get you to believe whatever they want. But you have the power to accept it or not. You can consciously choose. Therefore, you can say, I choose this because it empowers me. So I accept to align with it because it aligns with my higher self and it's aligned with my desires and what I'd like to bring forth and experience in my reality. Or you can choose to not accept something because you could say, this disempowers me. And I don't want this going into my subconscious because what's impressed in my subconscious is expressed in my outside world. And if this is not aligned with my desires and my higher self, I choose not to surround myself with this type of information. We have to discern the information that comes towards us. If we have our desire and our definite chief aim and we're moving towards that, are the people and friends that we're surrounding ourselves with, are they supporting that belief or are they disempowering us? The environment and job that we're in, is it supporting our belief or is it disempowering us? But we really have to filter and discern where we place our energy, what information that we take in, what we listen to, what we watch, whether it's social media or the news or what people say. We also have to pay attention to our thoughts. We have 60,000 different thoughts daily. So if we want to bring forth what we imagine for ourselves, we really have to focus in what we truly desire. Neville says, when we have learned to control the movements of our attention in the fourth dimensional world, we shall be able to consciously create circumstances in the third dimensional world. We learn this control through the wake and dream, where our attention can be maintained without effort, for attention minus effort is indispensable to change in the future. When we construct a dream, we create what we want in the fourth dimension to be manifested in the third dimensional world. In doing this, whatever we would like to experience in reality, we construct in our imagination. Therefore, what we want to do is we want to lay out what we want to imagine in a logical sequence and in the sequence that we expect to experience it. The more consistency, the more repetition we apply to this experience, the more vivid the experience becomes. The idea is we want to put ourselves in a state that allows us to control our attention with the smallest amount of effort. The key is to create a desire without gripping onto your desire. We want to maintain this burning desire while detaching ourselves from the outcome. Again, it's about changing the future, and we do this through the process of a controlled waking dream. So first, we define our objective. What is it that we want? What is our burning desire? Secondly, we construct an event that we believe we will encounter following the fulfillment of our desire. Third, we want to create a state akin to sleep and mentally feel yourself in the action so you can experience in imagination what you would experience in the flesh. When you begin to put this into practice, you'll notice that your outer world will change. And as I said, when you change the way you look at things, the things around you will change. You'll notice that people, places, and circumstances are coming towards you to align you with your desires. You notice that you move with more ease and flow. And then you're excited every day because you know that you're being pulled towards what you want. And even if something shows up that's not congruent with what you want, you still see the guidance in the message. And that is a beautiful place to be. But ultimately, your faith and belief grow. There's a knowingness in your being that you are aligned with your higher self and that this message, this guidance has been provided to you. As Neville said, and he shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. By knowing this, there's a freeness that comes to you. There's a lightness that comes over you. You're no longer restricted and you're no longer on the effect side of things, but you're on the cause side of things. You know the truth. So you understand that I create my reality, whether it's in congruence with what I want or not. I am responsible for creating that. And that is not disempowering, but that's extremely empowering. At any point, we can change our outer world to align with our inner world. As Neville said, the ancient teachers warned us not to judge from appearances, because as they said, the truth need not conform to the external reality to which it relates. Meaning your reality will not necessarily resemble your truth, and also it need not resemble your truth. For one's truth is not found in one's outer world, but rather it's found within. When you allow your outer world to dictate how you feel, you are a slave to your outer world, and you are being held back by the tethers that keep you from aligning with your truth. As you decide to take your attention off the appearances of the external world, you decide to stand in your power. And by standing in your power, you acknowledge your freedom and you align with your truth. And as he said, he shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. To know your truth is to truly be free, because you are not bound by your appearances and you're not limited by your senses, because you reside in a space that expands far beyond the limitations of the physical world. We must understand that to lack freedom is to be a prisoner. And a prisoner is someone who has no freedom because their life is controlled by something or someone. When you don't know your truth, you are a prisoner to the external world. And if you blame people, places, and circumstances for your experiences, then by default, then your external world controls you, because that's what you believe. And as a man thinketh, so shall it be. Therefore, it's about shifting to a place that you call what you truly want into form, into fruition. He calleth those things which be not as though they were. Romans 4:17. It's through our desires that we have the capacity to manifest and bring into existence that which does not exist yet. In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falleth upon man, in slumberings upon the bed, then he openeth the ears of men and sealeth their instructions. Job 33:15-16. The dream state tends to be overlooked. And for many of us, it's deemed as nothing more than a compilation of images, that make no sense. However, the truth is, the images of your dream can be turned into your experiences in reality. In the dream state, we move from one dimension of the world to another. And with attention and focus, you can become an active participant in your dream rather than being a slave to the experiences that occur. And it's in this state that you begin to call things that are not seen as if they were. It's in this state that we seal this information and the process of manifestation begins. In a dimensionally larger world, ye shall not need to fight. Set yourselves, stand ye still, and see the salvation of the Lord with you. Chronicles 20:17. And because that greater world is slowly passing through our three-dimensional world, we can, by the power of imagination, mold our world in harmony with our desires. Look as though you saw, listen as though you heard, stretch forth your imaginary hand as though you were touched, and your assumptions will harden into fact. It's through our imagination that we mold our world like clay to resemble that in which we want to experience. With our imagination, we paint a vivid picture and we fuse it to the feeling of our wish fulfilled. But the idea is we want to use all your senses. And by doing so, we create a realness of the imagination. We want to listen. What sounds do you hear? What noises sound familiar? Feel. What does the temperature feel like? Is it cold? Is it hot? Can you feel the sun pressed against your skin? Are you shivering? What do your fingertips feel like? What does the room feel like? What does the room smell like? What odors do you smell? Is there anything familiar? Stretch forth your hand. Who does it come in contact with? How does their hand feel when you shake their hand? Be as descriptive as possible. The more vivid your imagination, the more real the encounter becomes. And when you surrender to a new way of creation, you no longer fight against the forms that have kept you out of balance. For me, I lived primarily in the third dimension. And I was constantly chasing things and running after things and feeling like life was being done to me. But as I shifted my belief to a fourth dimensional place, I had more peace of mind and harmony. I realized that the world is constantly working in my favor. I realized that I can trust and have faith. And as I trust and have faith, I can co create, and I'm not on this journey alone. And the journey becomes more enjoyable. I look forward to every day because every day, yes, I'm excited to my destination and to reach my desire. But there are nuggets in every waking moment of my day. When you understand this, you know that your consciousness demonstrates that there's no one else to blame but you. You are responsible for your change. As soon as we succeed in transforming ourselves, the world will melt magically before our eyes and reshape itself in harmony with that which our transformation affirms. In the divine economy, nothing is lost. We cannot lose anything save by descent from the sphere where the thing has its natural life. There is no transforming power in death. And whether we are here or there, we fashion our world that surrounds us by the intensity of our imagination and the feeling. And we illuminate or darken our lives by the concepts we hold of ourselves. It's I am's concept of self that perpetuates change. It's your self love, your self worth, your courage, or your doubt, fear, and limited beliefs that illuminate or darken your life. The higher your vibration, the more positive it is in energy, the more light you shine in your life and your outer experiences. And the lower your vibration, the more negative energy it encompasses, the darker your experiences will be. As it states, as you believe, so shall it be done unto you. Therefore, it is our inner transformation and our belief in ourselves that transforms our world. And a way for you to see this and keep track of this is journaling. This is what I did. And I recommend journaling as a way to have line of sight in your roadmap of change. If you connect the dots looking backwards with your journal, you'll see when you held a burning desire, when you fashion your imagination to that experience and feeling of the wish fulfilled. You'll be able to pay attention to notice the signs, symbols, and synchronicities and hunches that are magically showing up to create more harmony and flow for you, to guide you. For me, this required a lot of faith. It wasn't just changing it internally, but I had to have this knowingness, faith, and trust. Trust my instinct and trust my intuition and know that I was being guided. For me, that biggest obstacle was believing with unwavering faith that I was being guided. Because prior to this, I would chalk up a lot of my spiritual guidance to fluke or luck. I would focus solely on what I could see with my five senses. I would rationalize and I would get into my mind a lot and I would get into my head. But it was only when I was able to remove the veil that kept me blind and change my concept of self. As Neville said, as soon as we succeed in transforming ourselves, our world will melt magically in front of our eyes. As a result, you'll see people, places, and circumstances gravitate towards you to help you in your cause. I started to meet coaches that possessed a different way of thinking. I started to align with people that were like-minded. I expanded my spiritual practice to include NLP and human design. And as a result, I started to connect with the work of Neville Goddard. And this is the beauty of the journey. It will reveal to you whatever you need so that it can move you towards the path of enlightenment. And everyone's journey will be unique, but my biggest shift was taking my attention off everything I've ever known, shifting my attention off of the outside world, the strategy, the mechanics, and moving within, trusting that. You grow up learning that everything is about a process. Everything is about the mechanics and strategy of it. Everything is about putting your attention into the things so you can acquire more things. It's a pivot, it's a shift, it's a departure from what's familiar and stepping into something different. But through stepping into something different, I was able to create something different for myself. And this is the change that's required. It requires you to step out of the material plane and step into something completely different to change the circumstances of your world. It requires you to trust, because in trusting, you have faith and you have belief. Insanity is doing the same things and expecting different results. To truly be in alignment and have flow and harmony, to be on the cause side of things, it requires you to do things differently. Align with your imagination and your desires, create from the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and have belief and trust that you're being guided. But make time to know yourself, befriend yourself, so you can hear the signs, symbols, and synchronicities that are bringing you into alignment. As Neville says, to attempt to change the world before you can change your concept of yourself is to struggle against the very nature of things. There can be no outer change until there is first an inner change. I remember my business not being where I wanted it to be. I had relationships that weren't in alignment with what I wanted it to be. But regardless of what was happening, instead of being reactive to life, I responded to life in a way that allowed it to guide me. I remained centered and I wanted to stay in harmony and grace. I focused on the feeling of the wish fulfilled. I imagined myself as I desired to be. I imagined myself already being where I wanted to be. And this allowed a lot of things to happen when I was in debt, when I was having challenging times, when I was having challenging personal moments. It allowed me to stay positive. It allowed me to remain aligned with the feeling of the wish fulfilled. I didn't fixate on the negative things that were happening. I accepted them for what they are, but I am not my thoughts. I'm not my feelings. And I allowed myself to process them, but I allowed them to move through me, all while maintaining the feeling of my wish fulfilled. And it's through maintaining the feeling of the wish fulfilled, I noticed that people, places, and circumstances around me started to change. Opportunities started to come my way. And it was through those opportunities that I aligned with my desires. Your consciousness has the power to create positive and negative states in your life. So whether you're conscious of it or not, it's what you assume yourself to be. Your beliefs is what you experience, because that will be projected out into your reality. Therefore, it's important for us to take time to go within, to really change our concept of self so we can experience a different reality. It's important for us to align with our imagination and our desire and remove our vision and view off the 5 sensory experience, because the 5 sensory experience will shift and change, but it's not from the 5 sensory experience that we create. We see it for what it is. We allow it to guide us. We park and pivot where it's needed. Ultimately, we are the dreamers of our dream and the creators of our reality. And if we change the way we look at things, things around us will change. Thank you for tuning in, sharing space with me today. I hope you enjoyed today's segment. Please feel free to comment, subscribe. Thank you again.